Chapter 837. The two prodigies of the demon race had ugly expressions on their faces. Their combat strength was only on par with the lightning bird. Even the lightning bird had been defeated, so what could they do? The golden-robed youth in the sky had an ugly expression on his face. On the other hand, Fatty and the others cheered. "Ha, it's really lively here today." At this moment, a faint voice came from the sky far away. The voice clearly came from afar, but it sounded like it was right beside everyone's ears. Xian Yanqing's expression changed drastically when he heard the voice. Disbelief filled his eyes. Everyone looked toward the source of the voice. There was a total of 5 people walking over in the sky. Among the 5, there were 3 youths. There were 2 men and 1 woman. Among the 3 youths, a young man in a purple gold robe was obviously the leader. The other man and woman stood behind the young man in the purple gold robe. Beside the young man in the purple gold robe, there were 2 old men. The 2 old men gave off the feeling that they were ordinary people. They were like 2 ordinary old men who didn't know martial arts. There was no aura coming from their bodies. They were naturally not ordinary people. It was just that their cultivation was too high, so they gave off an illusion. The 2 old men chatted and laughed as they looked down. One of the old men seemed to be introducing something to the other old man. That seems to be the Black Wind Venerable." Suddenly, someone exclaimed. "What? The Black Wind Venerable? The Black Wind Venerable of the Imperial Sky Guard? That's him. I've seen him once. It's really the Black Wind Venerable." As soon as this was said, it caused even more exclamations. Countless gazes were cast toward one of the black-robed old men. "Invenerable. It's actually Invenerable." Invenerable was a title for a spiritual god realm expert. In other words, this black-robed old man was a peerless spiritual god realm expert. In the divine wilderness continent, martial emperors were the strongest. Martial emperors could dominate the world. On the other hand, the domain enlightened spirit god realm was the realm that was closest to the martial monarch realm. Usually, it was rare to see such a person. However, one had appeared at this moment. Then who were the others? They actually needed Invenerable to accompany them. The arrival of the Black Wind Venerable eased the tense atmosphere on the battle stage. Greetings to the Black Wind Venerable. The many sky prides of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace stood up and paid their respects. There's no need to be so courteous. There's a distinguished guest here today. I heard that an exchange meeting is being held here, so I brought him here to take a look. Black Wind Venerable said with a smile. Everyone was shocked. Honored guest? Who could be called a distinguished guest by Black Wind Venerable? The geniuses of the Heavenly Corpse sect and the Sky Demon Valley, the 4 overlords of the Eastern Wilderness, were all here. Naturally, they couldn't be from those 2 forces. Talisman Puppets sect? Impossible. The Talisman Puppets sect has declined now, and it utterly doesn't have the qualifications to be addressed as an honored guest by Exalt Darkwind. Other than these 3 forces, who else in the Eastern Wilderness was qualified to be called a guest by the Black Wind Venerable? They are from the Central Continent. Black Wind Venerable said with a smile. What? Everyone was shocked, including the geniuses of the Heavenly Corpse sect and the Sky Demon Valley. The Divine Wilderness was divided into 5 huge regions. Central Continent, Eastern Wilderness, Southern Underworld, Western Desert, and Northern Plains. Since ancient times, the Central Continent had been the most prosperous and powerful among the 5 major regions. The Central Continent had a vast territory and was full of outstanding people. It had always been filled with geniuses and experts. It was the top of the 5 major regions. These people were actually from the Central Continent. These people are from the Central Continent Ancient Saint Dynasty. This is a prince from the Ancient Saint Dynasty. The Black Wind Venerable threw out a bombshell. The crowd was in an uproar. Those who knew the distribution of the forces in the Central Continent were even more shocked. The Central Continent was different from the Eastern Wilderness. The 4 overlords ruled the region. The ancient Saint dynasty of the central continent had been passed down for countless years. It had ruled over the entire central continent, and the entire central continent was under its control. It was said that the heavenly secret chamber of commerce had been established by the ancient Saint dynasty of the central continent. Although some people had heard that the situation in the central continent had changed and the imperial family had weakened, the ancient Saint dynasty was still the most powerful force. The young man in the purple and gold robe was a prince from the ancient Saint dynasty of the central continent. No wonder the Black Wind Venerable addressed him as an honored guest. In the arena, Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Liao Tsong had once said that Xian Yanqing was from the central continent. However, when Lu Ming asked later, Xian Yanqing did not elaborate. The young man in the purple robe stepped forward and cupped his fists. I am Xie Zhen. I heard that the Eastern Wilderness geniuses were gathered here today, so I came to take a look. I hope I didn't disturb you. Your Highness is too polite. I am Di Feng. Di Feng stepped forward and cupped his fists. Brother Di, nice to meet you. Xie Zhen smiled and bowed. Then, Shi Mo and the young man in the golden robe from the heavenly monster tribe greeted Xie Zhen. The ancient Saint dynasty of the central continent was not to be underestimated. They naturally wanted to build a good relationship with it. Although the Eastern Wilderness was huge and had hundreds of regions, the Eastern Wilderness was extremely vast. However, those who had reached the level of Di Feng, Shi Mo, and the young man in the golden robe had a bright future. If they reached a certain level, they would sooner or later come into contact with the top geniuses from other regions. Now that they could build a good relationship with a prince from the ancient Saint dynasty of the central continent, they would not miss it. Lu Ming, I have to go. Let's leave this place together. At that moment, Xian Yanqing's voice sounded in Lu Ming's ears. His voice was filled with anxiety. Lu Ming turned his head and saw Xian Yanqing hiding in the crowd. His eyes were filled with anxiety. What's going on? Lu Ming was stunned and sent a message to Xian Yanqing. Let's go. There's no time to explain. Xian Yanqing was in the crowd. He kept retreating as if he wanted to leave this place quietly. At that moment, Xie Zhen suddenly frowned in the sky. Then, his eyes lit up and he turned around. Two beams of light shot out from his eyes as he looked in Xian Yanqing's direction. Haha, little sister, why didn't you greet me when you saw me? Are you trying to leave quietly? Xie Zhen laughed. In a flash, he appeared above Xian Yanqing's head. Xian Yanqing's face turned pale immediately. One of the old men, as well as the two young men behind Xie Zhen, also looked at Xian Yanqing with sharp gazes. Everyone in the surroundings was taken aback, revealing a puzzled expression. Xie Zhen called her little sister. Could Xie Zhen's sister be here? Since when did Xie Zhen's sister mingle with the crowd? Everyone followed Xie Zhen's gaze and looked at Xian Yanqing. It's her. At that moment, many people's eyes lit up. It's her. The girl who has been walking with Lu Ming is Xie Zhen's sister. Doesn't that mean she's the princess of the central continent ancient Saint dynasty? Many people were discussing in shock. Wan Tingting, Qiao Xian, Fatty, and the rest looked at Xian Yanqing in shock. Xian Yanqing has such an identity? Lu Ming was also stunned. Although he had always thought that Xian Yanqing's identity was mysterious, he did not expect her to be the princess of the central continent ancient Saint dynasty. Chapter 838. There were many things that he understood in an instant, but there were also many more questions. No wonder Xian Yanqing did not tell him the truth. No wonder Xian Yanqing was so talented, but he was not a disciple of any force in the Eastern Barren territory. No wonder Liao Tsong could see through him at first glance. However, if Xian Yanqing had such a high status, why did he travel such a long distance to the Eastern Barren territory, and even to the rural corner of the Burning Sun Empire? What was the purpose of all this? Xian Yanqing looked at Xie Zhen, who was in the sky. His face was pale, and there was a hint of bitterness in his expression. He said, "You are here to look for me." Ha, you're half right. We're here because our father asked us to form an alliance with the big forces in the East Continent and bring you back. We thought we'd have to go through a lot of trouble to ask the big forces for help in the investigation. We didn't expect to meet you here. You saved us a lot of trouble. Xie Zhen chuckled. I will not go back. Xie Nianqing said calmly. Xie Zhen's eyes turned cold. He said, I know you will say that, but you better not reject us. Seal your cultivation and come with us. Don't make things difficult for me. Xie Zhen, stop calling me your brother. You are not my brother, and you are not fit to be my brother. Go back with you and continue to be at your mercy. Become your tool and be bullied by you. Go back and tell Xie Qitian that he is not fit to be my father. I would rather die than go back. Xie Nianqing gritted his teeth and said loudly. How dare you? How dare you call His Majesty by his name? You are courting death. Do you really think you are a princess? The two young men and the old man shouted at the same time. They stared at Xie Nianqing with unfriendly eyes. Many people around them looked at the situation. Something is not right. Is Xie Nianqing really Xie Zhen's sister, the princess of the Central Continent ancient Saint dynasty? Why did even a few servants dare to scold her? Xie Zhen's face turned completely dark as he said coldly, You're getting bolder and bolder. You're the son of a lowly servant, and a mutant at that. If it weren't for Imperial Father's benevolence, I would have slaughtered you and fed you to the dogs. Xie Zhen, you dare to insult my mother, I will kill you sooner or later. Xie Nianqing's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. Insult your mother? Just a lowly servant, how can she have the qualifications to let this prince humiliate her? Xie Zhen said in a cold voice. You're courting death. Xie Nianqing roared, and his destructive power erupted. A beautiful arm slammed towards Xie Zhen. A cold smile appeared on Xie Nianqing's face. His body emitted a dazzling white light that was incomparably holy. He struck out with his palm, and a huge palm formed from white light completely destroyed Xie Nianqing's attack. Xie Nianqing's body trembled as she retreated, and she spurted out a mouthful of blood. Despicable mutant, how dare you resist? This time, no matter what, you have to go back. Father was too merciful in the past. This time, I will report to Father and send you to the underworld demon region. You will suffer the pain of being burned by the demon flames. Let's see if you still dare to come out and disgrace the Xie clan. Xie Zhen's eyes were cold, and there was even a hint of disgust in them. It didn't seem like he was looking at a relative, but rather like a high and mighty prince looking at a beggar. He walked out slowly, and his body emitted a pure white light, making him look even more holy. A strong pressure enveloped Xie Nianqing. Xie Nianqing retreated, and her face turned even paler. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Xie Nianqing, and a strong aura dispersed Xie Zhen's terrifying pressure. Everyone's gaze shifted. Unknowingly, Lu Ming had already appeared in front of Xie Nianqing. Xie Zhen's face darkened, and he looked at Lu Ming and said, Brat, who do you think you are? How dare you stop me? Get out of my way. Lu Ming's posture was ramrod straight, as though he was sitting on a mountain. He stood there, emitting a powerful aura. There was a glint in his eyes as he looked directly at Xie Zhen. I don't care who you are or whether you are Xiaoqing's relative. As long as you dare to hurt her, you are my enemy. Now, since Xiaoqing is unwilling to go with you, then get out of my way. Lu Ming's voice wasn't loud, but it was loud and clear. Especially the last sentence, then get out of my way. It made everyone's heart beat violently. Lu Ming dared to ask Xie Zhen to get out of my way, to ask a prince of the Central Continent ancient Saint dynasty to get out of my way. How bold of him. Xie Zhen was also slightly taken aback. Only after a while did he react. His eyes were filled with astonishing killing intent, as if he was a high and mighty emperor looking down on his subjects. A cold and indifferent voice sounded out, Lowly ant, you actually dare to speak to me in such a manner. When you say such words, no one in this world will be able to save you. Today, I will chop you into 8 pieces and feed them to the dogs. Bang! Xie Zhen's body emitted a blinding white light, like a white sun. A battle sword formed by the white light tore through the sky and slashed at Lu Ming. Bang! Lu Ming took a step forward and executed the heavenly art of suppressing hell, and lashed out with his palm. The heavens and earth trembled violently, and the blinding white light scattered in all directions, causing the others to close their eyes. As the white light dissipated, Lu Ming's body shuddered slightly, and he took 3 steps back. Xie Zhen's eyes flickered coldly, as if he was surprised that Lu Ming was able to resist his attack. Lu Ming, leave quickly. This has nothing to do with you. Xie Nianqing, who was behind Lu Ming, shouted anxiously. Lu Ming turned around and smiled at Xie Nianqing, saying, "What nonsense are you saying? Your matter is my matter." Xie Nianqing's body shuddered, and there seemed to be tears in her eyes. She bit her red lips and looked at Lu Ming in a daze. For a moment, she seemed to be in a daze, unable to say a word. Lu Ming smiled and faced Xie Zhen again. "So, you have a man outside. Kid, your talent is not bad. It seems like you are a genius of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. However, no matter which faction you are from, you will die today." After Xie Zhen spoke, he turned to Di Feng and said, "Brother Di, I want to kill this person today. You won't interfere, right?" Di Feng's eyes flickered as he glanced at Lu Ming and said, "I am not familiar with this person. He is not a core member of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. I will leave him to the prince." "Haha, that's great. Thank you, Brother Di." Xie Zhen burst out laughing. "Nianchao, who do you think you are? Why should my brother be punished by you?" The fatty was not happy. With a flicker, he came to Lu Ming's side. Wan Tingting and Xiao Xian also came to Lu Ming's side. Wang Haoxian's eyes flickered. In the end, he clenched his teeth and came to Lu Ming's side. "This has nothing to do with you. Leave this place first," Lu Ming said to the fatty and the rest. This matter was related to the Middle Continent ancient sacred dynasty. Lu Ming did not want to implicate the fatty and the rest. "Nianchao, Lu Ming, what is the meaning of this? You don't treat me as a friend? Or do you think my cultivation is too weak to help?" Chapter 839. Wan Tingting and Xiao Xian's eyes were firm. Although their cultivation was low, they chose to advance and retreat with Lu Ming. Looking at the fatty, Wan Tingting, and the others, Lu Ming felt warmth in his heart. Xie Nianqing was the same. She had always been eccentric, but her eyes were a little red. Good, a bunch of lowly ants, how dare you stop me? Today, I'll kill all of you." Xie Zhen's eyes were filled with cold killing intent. "Eighth Prince, you don't need to kill them. Leave it to us." With a flash, the man and woman who came with Xie Zhen appeared beside Xie Zhen, and the woman said, "All right, you guys do it. But I've changed my mind. Don't kill them, but cripple their cultivation first. I'll bring them back to the central continent and sell them to the barbarian tribe as slaves." Xie Zhen said coldly. "Yes." The man and woman answered. Xie Zhen retreated. Then, 2 sword cries rang out. One black and one white, 2 sword lights shrouded Lu Ming. "Fatty, you guys back off." Lu Ming let out a long howl. He took a step forward and threw 2 consecutive palms. With 2 booming sounds, the sword lights collapsed. The man and woman's faces changed, and with a shout, their sword chi skyrocketed. Both of them were experts at the peak of the 6th layer of the spiritual sea realm, and awakened the 3rd level of the divine rank bloodline. Unfortunately, they were a step too late and didn't see the power of Lu Ming's attack. They didn't know how terrifying Lu Ming was. Lu Ming was only at the 6th layer of the spiritual sea realm. They thought that with the 2 of them working together, it would be more than enough to take down Lu Ming. But in the next moment, they found that they were wrong. Lu Ming's battle prowess was simply terrifying. Pang! Pang! Lu Ming stepped out, his palms striking out continuously. The black and white sword lights shattered, and the two retreated quickly. Damn it, kill! The two roared angrily, and two giant swords, one black and one white, appeared above their heads. 3 golden chakras circled around the two giant swords. Their bodies merged with the giant swords, and sword cries shook the sky. Shwa! Whoosh! The giant black and white sword slashed violently at Lu Ming with astonishing power. Roar! At this moment, the faint roar of a dragon could be heard from Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's aura surged, and scales appeared on his skin. A berserk aura erupted from him, making him look like a ferocious beast. Scales also appeared on Lu Ming's hands. Even Lu Ming's fingernails became very long, like dragon claws. Whoosh! Whoosh! His hands turned into claws and violently clawed at the two black and white giant swords. Amidst the whistling of the sword chi, Lu Ming firmly grasped the blades of the two giant swords. The two giant swords shook violently, but for a moment, they could not fly out of his hands. Break! Lu Ming roared and exerted force with his claws. Bam! Bam! The black and white giant swords were crushed by Lu Ming, and they reverted back to their human forms. The two figures of a man and a woman were sent flying far away. They fell heavily on the ground and vomited large mouthfuls of blood. At this moment, countless people opened their eyes wide, looking at Lu Ming and the scales on Lu Ming's body. What's going on? What's up with Lu Ming's scales? It's like a demon. Could it be that he's not a human, but a demon? That's impossible. The cultivation technique that he cultivates is the state of heaven and earth. He's definitely a human. That should be a secret technique. There are many mysterious secret techniques in heaven and earth that can allow a human to transform into a beast. There are even some that can completely transform into a beast. That's right. It should be a secret technique. What a terrifying secret technique. Lu Ming didn't use it just now. It turns out that Lu Ming still has a trump card. The supreme talents from Emperor Sky Deity Palace, Sky Corpse Sect, and Sky Demon Valley opened their eyes wide. It turned out that Lu Ming hadn't used his full strength in the previous battle against the supreme talent from Sky Demon Valley. How strong was Lu Ming, a supreme talent who had awakened a level 2 divine grade bloodline, exactly? Xie Zhen's eyes turned even colder. He glanced at the man and woman and scolded, "What a bunch of trash. I have to deal with them personally." Having said that, Xie Zhen took another step forward, slowly walking towards Lu Ming. With every step he took, the aura on his body grew stronger. In the distance, the Black Wind Reverend and the old man from the Central Region Ancient Saint Dynasty watched quietly. They didn't make a sound, nor did they make a move to stop Xie Zhen. Lu Ming, be careful. He has awakened a level 5 divine grade bloodline. Xie Nianqing reminded Xie Zhen softly. Bitch, so what if I remind you? Xie Zhen scolded coldly. A burly man in golden armor appeared above his head. This burly man in golden armor was 100 meters tall, like a deity. He held a golden spear in his hand. There were 5 golden chakras around the burly man in golden armor, which were extremely dazzling. Level 5 divine grade bloodline. Kill! The burly man in golden armor held the long spear in his hand and smashed it down towards Lu Ming from above. Before the long spear arrived, the terrifying pressure was completely unleashed. Xie Zhen's cultivation had already reached the peak of the 7th level of the spiritual sea realm. With such cultivation, he had fused with a level 5 divine grade bloodline. It was too powerful and terrifying. One could imagine how terrifying Ao Kuan's battle strength was when he was only at the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm. Xie Zhen would definitely not be weaker than Ao Kuan in a battle of the same level. It could be seen how terrifying his battle strength was. Roar! At this moment, another dragon roar sounded from Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming had also unleashed the second dragon force. The two dragon forces exploded together, and the power was multiplied. Pang! Lu Ming stomped his foot and soared into the sky. He used the suppressing hell heaven skill and punched the huge golden spear. Dang! The terrifying vibration formed a sound wave that spread out like a storm. Some of the weaker cultivators were shocked, and their eardrums were almost shattered. They all used their martial arts to resist. Qiao Xian's body trembled, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. The fatty on the side quickly supported Qiao Xian, and his true yuan spread out to help Qiao Xian block the terrifying sound wave. In the sky, the huge spear vibrated and buzzed. The burly man in golden armor's huge body actually trembled and took a step back. Boom! This step in the air caused the space to ripple like water. The air was compressed into liquid and blasted on the battle stage below, causing it to shake violently. And Lu Ming's body only took a step back. Damn it, lowly ant, die! Xia Zhen roared angrily after using bloodline fusion and was actually pushed back by Lu Ming's punch. Fist of the suppressing devil! The burly man in golden armor roared. The spear in his hand disappeared, and his huge fist punched towards Lu Ming. Wang! The suppressing hell steel appeared above Lu Ming's head. Lu Ming used bloodline fusion and fused his body with the steel. The moment they fused, the two dragon forces also fused with the steel, causing it to be even stronger than before. Suppressing hell heaven skill. The suppressing hell steel enlarged and suppressed the burly man in golden armor. At the same time, the burly man in golden armor's terrifying fist light blasted towards the steel. Boom! 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 Terrifying vibrations exploded in the sky. Even from thousands of miles away, the shocking fluctuations could be heard. Dozens of explosions rang out in succession. Chapter 840. Suppress. Be it demon, deity, ghost, or monster, suppress them all. A loud voice came from the suppressing prison steel. The suppressing prison steel became 10,000 meters tall and pressed down on Xia Zhen. Xia Zhen, who was in the form of a man in golden armor, roared and punched out. However, in the next instant, his eyes were filled with fear. The suppressing prison steel pressed down and the fist radiance collapsed. The suppressing prison steel went for the head of the man in golden armor. Hold on! The man in golden armor roared and dodged the attack. He used his shoulder to block the suppressing prison steel and his hands to support himself. But the suppressing prison steel could suppress everything. It was as heavy as an ancient mountain, and it was not something that the man in golden armor could withstand. Kneel down! Lu Ming's voice came from the suppressing prison steel. Boom! The man in golden armor could not withstand it and his body fell off the fighting ring. Then, his body trembled and he knelt down. Ah! The man in golden armor roared in anger. He, the prince of the Middle Continent ancient sage dynasty, was actually suppressed by Lu Ming in public and forced to kneel on the fighting ring. This was a great humiliation. I want you to die. I want you to die. Xia Zhen's voice came out. Then I'll kill you now. Lu Ming's voice could be heard. The prison-suppressing monument shone and shook slightly. The burly man in golden armor roared furiously and lay down on the ground. His body shrank rapidly and turned into Xia Zhen's appearance. He looked at the prison-suppressing monument above his head in horror and anger. Boom! The suppressing prison steel pressed down on Xia Zhen. How dare you! At this moment, a voice came out and rumbled in the area. It was the old man who stood beside the black-winged venerable. At that moment, he let out a cold snort, extended a skinny hand, and pointed forward. A huge finger that looked like the finger of a deity appeared out of thin air and pointed at the suppressing prison steel. At this moment, Lu Ming felt an unbelievably strong force shrouding him. He was powerless in front of this force. Bam! The finger touched the suppressing prison steel. Instantly, the suppressing prison steel exploded and turned back into Lu Ming's body. He flew out like a cannonball and hit the ground 10 miles away. Boom! Lu Ming lay in the middle of the ground, coughing up mouthfuls of blood. He felt as if all the bones in his body had been broken, and he was in excruciating pain. That old man was too formidable, peerless, and unfathomable. It was very likely that he was a domain-enlightened spirit god just like Exalt Black Wind. Lu Ming. Xian Yanqing let out a delicate cry and charged toward Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, she appeared beside Lu Ming and helped Lu Ming up. Tears began to fall from her eyes. Lu Ming, are you okay? Xian Yanqing supported Lu Ming and continuously poured his true essence into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood. He smiled and said, "Idiot, why are you crying?" "I'm fine." Lu Ming. At this moment, Fatty and the others charged over as well. Damn it. A dignified Exalt Realm expert actually made a move against you. If worse comes to worst, I'll get that old bastard of mine to come over and slap him to death. Fatty roared furiously. Fatty, don't interfere in this matter. Quickly leave this place, said Lu Ming. Their opponents were too strong. They had an Exalt Realm expert, and their current cultivations were no different than ants in the eyes of an Exalt Realm expert. If they resisted, then all of them would die. Lu Ming absolutely didn't want to implicate Fatty and the others. Lu Ming, I'll go back with them. Recuperate properly and stop fighting. Xian Yanqing's tears flowed incessantly as she spoke. No. Little Qing, I can sense that you'll definitely suffer if you go back. Even if I have to fight with my life on the line, I don't want you to go back and suffer. Lu Ming struggled with the intention of getting up. Xia Zhen and the others didn't treat Xian Yanqing like a family member at all. They treated him like an enemy or even a servant. Even a few servants dared to scold Xian Yanqing. It was obvious that Xian Yanqing wouldn't have a good time when he went back. Lu Ming wouldn't stop them if they were normal family members. However, it was obvious that they weren't normal family members. Although Lu Ming didn't know the inside story, Xian Yanqing's words of "I'd rather die than go back" explained everything. He would rather die than return. In Xian Yanqing's heart, returning was worse than death. Swoosh! The old man took a step forward and appeared above Lu Ming and the others. Kill them. I want all of them dead. Xia Zhen screamed hysterically. He was a lofty prince of the Eastern Continent's ancient Saint dynasty, yet he'd actually been suppressed by Lu Ming and forced to kneel on the spot. How humiliating was that? He was filled with hatred. The old man frowned slightly, and then he looked at Xian Yanqing and said, 16th Princess, please come back with me. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. As an Exalt at the domain-enlightened spirit god realm, it was truly embarrassing for the old man to make a move against a few juniors. So, he hadn't used much strength against Lu Ming at all, and he'd only stopped Lu Ming from killing Xia Zhen. If he'd really used some strength, then Lu Ming would have died even if he had 10 lives. The gap between the Sea of Soul realm and the domain-enlightened spirit god realm was too huge. Alright, Exalt Guardian, I'll go back with you, but you have to let Lu Ming and the others go. Xian Yanqing spoke. No, that bastard must die. Xia Zhen stared at Lu Ming with killing intent as he shouted. If you want to kill him, then I'd rather die than return. At most, you can bring my corpse back. With a move of his hand, a short sword appeared in Xian Yanqing's hand, and he pressed it against his chest with a resolute expression. Lil Qing, don't. Lu Ming was shocked and shouted. Miss Yanqing. Fatty and the others were shocked as well. Bitch, how dare you threaten me? Xia Zhen roared. The Exalt Guardian frowned even more. No matter what. I'm still Xia Qitian's daughter. If you bring my corpse back, I believe Xia Qitian won't be happy. Xian Yanqing's gaze was firm as he stared at the old man and Xia Zhen in the air. Xia Zhen's face stiffened. He wasn't very outstanding among the princes. If he really brought Xian Yanqing's corpse back, then his position in his father's heart would probably be slightly affected. Even if it was just a little bit, it was still a big deal to him. The Exalt Guardian pondered for a moment and said, Alright, I promise you. It doesn't matter whether you kill them or not. Thank you. Then, Xia Nianqing's gaze turned to Xia Zhen. Xia Zhen gritted his teeth and finally said, Alright, I also promise to let that bastard go. But you have to promise to seal your cultivation and go back with us obediently. Alright, I'll do as I say. After Xia Nianqing finished speaking, he looked at Lu Ming with reluctance in his eyes. Fool, I'm leaving. Xia Nianqing smiled with a trace of sadness, as beautiful as a summer flower. Lil, Qing, Lu Ming exclaimed softly and clenched his fists. In the end, he was still powerless to keep Xia Nianqing and needed Xia Nianqing to save his life. At this moment, he hated his own powerlessness and his lack of strength. If he had the strength to dominate the world, how could Xia Zhen and the others take Xia Nianqing away? How could he let Xia Nianqing do something that she didn't want to do? Chapter 841. He seemed to have made rapid progress recently, competing with the Eastern Wilderness geniuses, but that was only among the younger generation. Moreover, even among the younger generation, he might not be a match for Di Feng, Shi Mo, and the others. Moreover, there were still the top 100 geniuses on the list of top 1,000 talents ahead of him. This was only among the younger generation. Compared to the ancient families, or even the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, the Heavenly Corpse sect, and the Middle Continent Ancient Saint Dynasty, he was still far behind. In the face of such forces, he seemed so powerless. Power, power. Lu Ming kept growling in his heart. 16th Princess, I've already agreed. Come with me now. The guardian said. Xia Nianqing's body trembled. She suddenly bent down and pressed her red lips on Lu Ming's. At this moment, their lips were touching, as if they had become one. Bitch! Xia Zhen's eyes flashed coldly as he growled. But at this moment, no one paid attention to Xia Zhen. Everyone's eyes were focused on Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing. After a long while, their lips parted. 2 drops of tears fell on Lu Ming's face. Lu Ming, I'll wait for you. No matter how much pain I suffer, I won't die. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for the day you rule the world. When you rule the world, we'll hold hands and never be separated. Her voice echoed in Lu Ming's ears. Xia Nianqing had already floated away and landed beside the guardian. Shao Qing. Lu Ming felt as if a large stone was stuck in his chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. Miss Nianqing. Wan Tingting and Xiao Xian's eyes glistened with tears. Wang Haoxian also looked at Lu Ming and Xia Nianqing with a complicated expression. Ah, damn it, I'm going to call that old bastard here. The fat man growled, his fat body trembling. Rule the world? What a joke. How dare an ant try to defy the heavens? What a dream. Guardian, let's go. Xia Zhen sneered. He came to the guardian and said, Bitch, alien, this time when we go back, I'll make you go to the 9th underworld. Just you wait. The protector waved his hand and took Xia Nianqing, Xia Zhen, the man, and the woman. They turned into a ray of light and disappeared. Shao Qing. Lu Ming looked in the direction where Xia Nianqing had left. Let's leave. The fat man said. That was because there were people from the Heavenly Monster Valley looking at them with unfriendly gazes. Lu Ming's combat power was too terrifying. Even Xia Zhen, the prince of the Middle Continent Ancient Saint Dynasty, who had awakened a 5th-level divine bloodline and whose cultivation had reached the peak of the 7th level of the Spirit Sea Realm, was suppressed by Lu Ming. He was too powerful. Now that Lu Ming was seriously injured, they had other thoughts. Let's go. The fat man wrapped Lu Ming with his true origin and left in a flash. Wan Tingting and the rest followed behind. The eyes of the people from the Sky Demon Valley flashed, but they did not chase after them. After all, this was the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, not the Sky Demon Valley. If they chased after the geniuses of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace openly, would the people of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace allow it? Otherwise, they would lose all their face. What an interesting guy. The Black Wind Venerable smiled and said, "You guys, continue the competition. I'm leaving." A black wind blew past, and the Black Wind Venerable disappeared. Now that Aokuin is dead and Lu Ming has retreated with serious injuries, why don't we start the competition from the 6th level of the spiritual sea realm? Di Feng looked in the direction where Lu Ming and the rest left, then looked at Shir-Imo and the golden-robed youth. "I have no objections," Shir-Imo said. "Okay." The golden-robed youth could only nod. The competition continued, but Lu Ming and the rest had nothing to do. A million miles away, in a hidden valley, Lu Ming sat cross-legged, trying his best to heal his injuries. Previously, he was hit by the Honorable Guardian of the Middle Continent Ancient Saint Dynasty. Although the Honorable Guardian did not use much strength, he was still severely injured, and his bones were broken into a few hundred pieces. Fortunately, it was only a physical injury, and his internal organs were only slightly injured. With Lu Ming's current physical strength and cultivation, he could recover quickly. Time passed day by day, and in the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. Lu Ming's injuries were healed, and he was in peak condition. Wang Haoxian's figure flickered, and she appeared beside Lu Ming. "How's the investigation?" Lu Ming opened his eyes and looked at Wang Haoxian. 2 days ago, Lu Ming asked Wang Haoxian to investigate where Xie Zhen and the rest were, and whether they were still in Nine Dragon City. Previously, Xie Zhen had said that they came to Eastern Wilderness to form an alliance with a few major forces. Forming an alliance was a big deal, and Lu Ming guessed that Xie Zhen and the rest would not leave so soon. Therefore, he sent Wang Haoxian to investigate. The people from Middle Continent are still there, and they are staying in the Ocean Wave Ancient Garden in another dragon vein. Wang Haoxian told him the truth. "Ocean Wave Ancient Garden? I know." Lu Ming nodded and closed his eyes again. Not far away, Fatty, Ruan Tingting, and Xiao Xian were discussing something. Why do you think Lu Ming sent Wang Haoxian to find out where the people from Middle Continent are staying? Is he trying to save Miss Nianqing? With Lu Ming's cultivation, he will definitely die if he goes there. Ruan Tingting whispered. "That's right. They have honorables, and he will definitely die if he goes there. We still have to keep an eye on Lu Ming, and don't let him do anything rash." Fatty nodded. Another day passed. Lu Ming sat still. At this moment, the image of Xie Nianqing kept flashing in his mind. Back then, when they met for the first time in the ancestral remains of the Dongyi tribe in the Burning Sun Empire, they fought fiercely in the beginning. At that time, Xie Nianqing suffered a great loss. Later on, the two of them met again in the Scorching Sun Imperial capital. After that, the two of them experienced a lot together. The words, "I will trample you under my feet," echoed in Lu Ming's ears from time to time. After going through so much together, Xie Nianqing's image had been deeply engraved in his heart. Similarly, his image was deeply engraved in Xie Nianqing's heart, and it was difficult to erase it. "When you rule the world, you and I will hold hands and never be separated." Xie Nianqing's words were still ringing in his ears. However, he did not know how many years it would take to rule the world. Moreover, Martial Emperor De was standing in front of Lu Ming, blocking him. He didn't know if he could defeat Emperor De. If he failed, wouldn't Xie Nianqing have to stay in the ancient empire of the central continent for the rest of her life? Wouldn't she stay in that place where she suffered? Shao Qing, when you suddenly disappeared for 2 years, were you also brought back to the Middle Continent? But then, you ran out again. Since you don't want to go back to that home, and that home will make you suffer, then I won't let you go. It's too long to wait for me to rule the world. I will seize every moment. Suddenly, Lu Ming opened his eyes. In his eyes, there seemed to be 2 rays of spear light piercing through the air and into the clouds. With a flash, Fatty and the others appeared beside Lu Ming. "Lu Ming, have you recovered?" Fatty asked. "Yes." Lu Ming nodded, and then said, "You guys leave Nine Dragon City first. I have something to do." Fatty's face changed, and he said, "Lu Ming, are you going to save Miss Nianqing?" No, you will die if you go like this. Chapter 842. Lu Ming let out a smile and said, "Don't worry, I have my ways. I won't risk my life." "What ways?" "Lu Ming, you don't have to lie to us. If you have a way to deal with the Martial Highness, we'll go together." The fatty yelled. "Fatty, why do you have to do this?" Lu Ming let out a sigh. Suddenly, his figure took a few steps backward. Buzz! Lines of runes appeared on the ground, forming a huge formation, trapping the fatty and his crew within it. Lu Ming already knew that the fatty and his crew would not leave, thus he had secretly carved the runes. The formation appeared like a cage, trapping the fatty, Wang Haoxian, Ruan Tingting, and Xiao Xian within it. "Lu Ming, what are you doing? You're despicable, trapping us with a formation. Let us out at once, I'll challenge you to a duel." The fatty yelled. Ruan Tingting and the others blurted out in panic too. Lu Ming let out a smile as his heart was filled with warmth. He was willing to take the risk, but he would not let the fatty and his crew take the risk too. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Lu Ming let out a smile, before he glanced at Wang Haoxian and said, "I've lied to you before. If anything happens to me, the soul-splitting formation will dissolve on its own." With that, Lu Ming turned around and stepped into the air. "Lu Ming." Wang Haoxian glanced in the direction Lu Ming had left with a complicated expression. "Let's do it, let's break the formation." The fatty let out a furious roar as he unleashed his full strength to break the formation. Lu Ming traveled rapidly in the air, covering 1,000 li in the blink of an eye. He did not head to the ocean billow ancient garden, but to the dragon vein. He soon covered a distance of 1,000,000 li. Lu Ming returned to the location of the previous gathering. The gathering had already come to an end. The crowd had already dispersed, leaving only a few people observing the godly nine-dragon cauldron. Lu Ming didn't stop as he strode towards the divine nine-dragon cauldron. When he was within 10,000 meters, the nine-dragon cauldron emitted a massive pressure. However, it didn't stop Lu Ming's footsteps at all. Step by step, he walked steadily towards the nine-dragon cauldron. Soon, he was within 1,000 meters of the divine nine-dragon cauldron. That looks like Lu Ming. It's really him. It seems like his injuries have already healed. What is he doing here? I don't know. Some people recognized Lu Ming and looked at him curiously. After the previous battle, Lu Ming's name had spread throughout Nine Dragon City. Many people believed that in time, Lu Ming would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the top 100 talents on the list of top 1,000 talents. However, there were also people who believed that Lu Ming's bloodline was only at the second level of the divine level. His potential was limited, and his future achievements could not compare to those of the top 100 prodigies. Lu Ming had no idea what was going on, nor did he care to find out. Step by step, he approached the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Roar! Within his body, the blood of the nine dragons roared, constantly emitting draconic roars. However, outsiders could not hear it. The closer he got to the divine nine-dragon cauldron, the more violent the nine dragons' bloodline became. It seemed to want to rush out of his body and pounce on the divine nine-dragon cauldron, but Lu Ming suppressed it. He was getting closer and closer to the divine nine-dragon cauldron. 500 meters, 300 meters, 100 meters, a layer of blood-red light spread out from Lu Ming's back. Dong! At this moment, the divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrated. The vibration traveled thousands of miles, and the entire dragon vein seemed to shake. Not far away, the others widened their eyes. The divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrated. The divine nine-dragon cauldron that has remained motionless for thousands of years actually vibrated. I heard that it vibrated once a while ago. I thought it was fake, but I didn't expect it to be true. Unbelievable. Why? Why is the divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrating? These people exclaimed. They had never thought that it was because of Lu Ming. How could a young man make the divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrate? How could the divine nine-dragon cauldron, which even martial emperors could not move, vibrate. Lu Ming's eyes were bright and persistent as he strode forward. He was getting closer and closer. Dong! The divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrated again. The surrounding people were even more shocked. In the distance, there were streaks of light flying towards them. These people had rushed over because they had heard the commotion. Heavens, the divine nine-dragon cauldron really moved? The people who rushed over later were also shocked. At this moment, Lu Ming had already reached one of the legs of the divine nine-dragon cauldron. The divine nine-dragon cauldron had 4 legs, all of which were extremely huge. That seems to be Lu Ming. What is he doing? Some of the people who came later recognized Lu Ming. Look, he is hugging the legs of the cauldron. He is going to move the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Ridiculous. Countless geniuses have tried in history, but it was useless. How can he move it? Someone sneered. However, in the next moment, everyone's expression changed drastically. Their eyes almost popped out. Lu Ming hugged the legs of the cauldron with both hands. Of course, he could not hug it completely. He could only hug a corner. Rise! Lu Ming roared. His long hair fluttered and he suddenly exerted force. Dong! As Lu Ming exerted force, the divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrated again. This time, the vibration was louder and more shocking than the previous 2 times. The vibration spread far and wide like a storm. The entire dragon vein trembled violently and shook violently. The divine nine-dragon cauldron is moving again and it is even more violent. It can't be. Could it be that the divine nine-dragon cauldron is moving because of Lu Ming? Someone guessed. No way, it can't be. It must be a coincidence. Some people found it hard to accept and shook their heads, thinking that it was a coincidence. Rise! Lu Ming roared again. Dong! The divine nine-dragon cauldron moved again. The huge body of the cauldron was shaking. On the ground, there were huge rocks breaking and splashing. Oh my God, it's moving again. It's really because of Lu Ming. Unbelievable. Someone shouted, while more people looked at all of this with their mouths agape. In the sky, rainbow lights flashed and more people flew over. Divine nine-dragon cauldron, what are you waiting for? Now, come and fight with me. Lu Ming roared, his voice shaking the sky. The others were shocked. Lu Ming actually wanted to fight with the cauldron? Who was he going to fight? Some people remembered the grudge between Lu Ming and the ancient empire of Middle Continent a few days ago and gasped. Could it be that Lu Ming wanted to fight with the experts of the ancient empire of Middle Continent? How bold! How bold! Divine nine-dragon cauldron, I know you have a spirit. Come and fight with me. Lu Ming continued to roar. The nine dragons' bloodline in his body roared. The voice of the nine dragons' bloodline seemed to be constantly transmitted into the divine nine-dragon cauldron. However, Lu Ming felt that there was a spirit in the divine nine-dragon cauldron that was resisting. It was unwilling to leave the ground and fight with Lu Ming. You are too weak. Suddenly, a voice was transmitted into Lu Ming's ears. It seemed to come from ancient times and was full of vicissitudes. This voice could not be heard by others except for Lu Ming. I am too weak, but in the future, I will rule the world. Lu Ming roared, his battle intent invincible. Dong! Chapter 843. In Lu Ming's sea of consciousness, the lightning cauldron vibrated and a voice was transmitted into the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Dong! At that moment, the divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrated even more violently. The ground under the cauldron's feet suddenly exploded, sending rocks flying into the distance. Rise! Lu Ming hugged the legs of the cauldron and shouted. Then, everyone was shocked to see the cauldron as big as a mountain leave the ground. Yes, Lu Ming carried it and lifted it off the ground. At that moment, the place was dead silent. Cauldron, fight with me! Lu Ming shouted again. Suddenly, He spat out a mouthful of blood onto the divine nine-dragon cauldron. This mouthful of blood was the blood of the 9 dragons. It flowed down Lu Ming's throat and onto the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Dong! The divine nine-dragon cauldron vibrated even more violently and emitted a bright light. Lu Ming lifted it up high. Oh my god, what did I just see? Lu Ming lifted the divine nine-dragon cauldron. He really lifted the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Did the divine nine-dragon cauldron acknowledge him? Unbelievable. Almost everyone was shouting as if they had gone mad. Rumble. The dragon vein vibrated violently as if the entire dragon vein was about to turn into a dragon and leave. At that moment, not only the dragon vein, but the other 8 dragon veins in the 9-dragon city were also vibrating violently. There was a cauldron at the head of each dragon vein. Now, those cauldrons were all vibrating. What's going on? What happened? Above the dragon vein, countless experts who were cultivating in seclusion opened their eyes one after another, revealing a look of shock. The dragon vein is vibrating, the divine nine-dragon cauldron is vibrating. What happened? Countless voices were heard. At that moment, countless experts in the 9-dragon city were startled. In the depths of the 6 ancient families, 6 middle-aged men opened their eyes. These 6 middle-aged men were the patriarchs of the 6 ancient families that Martial Emperor De had gathered previously. The divine nine-dragon cauldron is vibrating. What happened? Surprised voices were heard from the 6 people. In the depths of the De Tian Imperial Guards, Yan Kuangtu was drinking wine. Suddenly, his eyes emitted a bright light as he stood up and looked into the distance. To think that the divine nine-dragon cauldron, which has not moved since ancient times, actually moved. Interesting. A curious voice came from Yan Kuangtu's mouth. On the dragon head, Lu Ming pulled out the cauldron, startling everyone. The 9-dragon cauldron actually became lighter when the blood of the 9 dragons landed on it. Lu Ming's mind raced. He took a deep breath and took a step forward. Bang! Space trembled. Lu Ming carried the cauldron and stepped in the air, causing the space to tremble violently. However, Lu Ming stood firmly in the air. Go! Then, Lu Ming took another step forward. Although the void shook, Lu Ming stood firmly. Shao Qing, I'm here. Lu Ming's footsteps quickened as he soared through the air, heading towards the Ocean Wave Ancient Park. At this moment, the sky was filled with people. However, all of them were dumbfounded as they watched this scene. Lu Ming was actually able to carry the cauldron and walk into the distance. What was he trying to do? Countless people followed behind Lu Ming, wanting to see what was going on. Lu Ming, the divine nine-dragon cauldron is the most valuable treasure of the 9-dragon city. What are you trying to do by carrying the cauldron? Put it down. A few elders appeared in front of Lu Ming and berated him loudly. A terrifying aura emanated from their bodies. It was the aura of the spirit embryo realm. It's the experts of the Imperial Heavenly Guard. Someone recognized that the Imperial Heavenly Guard was the closest to this place. Scram! Lu Ming berated them and took a step forward. Boom! This step seemed to borrow the power of the cauldron. Endless pressure pressed down on the few experts. The expressions of the experts of the Imperial Heavenly Guard changed drastically as though they were under endless pressure. They screamed in pain as their bodies trembled. They were sent flying far away, coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. How is this possible? Countless people sucked in a cold breath. Lu Ming took a step forward and sent a few experts of the spirit embryo realm flying back while coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. This was too unbelievable. Lu Ming seems to be able to borrow the power of the divine nine-dragon cauldron. Terrifying, terrifying. How did he do it? Not only can he lift the divine nine-dragon cauldron that emperors can't move, he can even borrow the power of the cauldron. How is this possible? The surroundings were bustling with noise. The experts who wanted to stop Lu Ming also had a terrible expression. They didn't dare to make a move. Lu Ming stepped on the void and walked faster and faster. In the end, He was sprinting and could travel dozens of miles in an instant. In the blink of an eye, 3 hours passed. Lu Ming was surrounded by people. Everyone was looking at Lu Ming in a daze, looking at the person who was carrying the cauldron. Lu Ming's body was really small compared to the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. However, he was able to carry the Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. He had the strength to pick up mountains and his aura was unrivaled. This scene was deeply imprinted in everyone's heart. I've arrived at the Ocean Wave Ancient Park. Lu Ming's gaze was fixed in front of him. After 3 hours, Lu Ming had finally arrived at the Ocean Wave Ancient Park. In front of him, there were layers upon layers of palaces situated on top of a mountain. Clouds and mist were faintly discernible, making it look like a fairyland. This was the Ocean Wave Ancient Park. It was specially used by the Emperor Sky Divine Palace to receive important guests. The commotion outside had obviously alarmed the Ocean Wave Ancient Park. Whoosh! Whoosh! A figure flew out. It was Xie Zhen, the man, and the woman. The Honorable Guardian was also there. In addition, there were 2 middle-aged burly men. At this moment, Xie Zhen and the rest were looking at Lu Ming in shock. Lu Ming was actually carrying a huge cauldron. Lu Ming, it's you again. What are you doing here? Are you here to die? Xie Zhen shouted coldly, his eyes flickering with a cold light. Hand Shaoqing over. Since Shaoqing is unwilling to go back with you, I won't let her go with you. Lu Ming's voice could be heard from afar. Little bastard, you still don't want to give up? Fine, since you're here to die, I'll send you on your way. Take him down. Xie Zhen waved his hand. The 2 middle-aged burly men stepped out, their bodies emitting a powerful aura. Spirit Embryo Realm. These 2 burly men were experts in the Spirit Embryo Realm. Scram! Lu Ming shouted and stepped out. Boundless pressure exploded, and the 2 burly men's faces changed. They screamed in pain and were sent flying, coughing out large mouthfuls of blood. How could this be? Xie Zhen's eyes were about to explode, and his mouth was wide open in disbelief. Dong! Lu Ming stepped out again, and a violent pressure came crashing down on Xie Zhen. 8th Prince, be careful. The Honorable Guardian moved and appeared in front of Xie Zhen. A terrifying aura erupted from his body, and he punched out. Heaven and earth trembled, and the space trembled violently. A pillar of air shot up into the sky and blocked Lu Ming's stomp that borrowed the power of the cauldron. A spirit god realm expert was terrifyingly powerful, and Lu Ming couldn't do anything to him even if he borrowed the power of the cauldron. The legendary Divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron of Nine Dragon City was actually pulled out by you. Unbelievable. I can't let you live today. A wisp of killing intent flashed in the Honorable Guardian's eyes as he stepped out. Boom! Chapter 844. The expressions of countless people in the surroundings changed violently. It was like a mountain was pressing down upon them, and they had the feeling that a great calamity was about to descend upon them. Shit! The Exalt is about to display his might. Let's retreat. Retreat! A wave of terrified cries resounded from the surroundings while countless figures retreated madly like ants. I've already spared you once, yet you refuse to repent. Then I'll kill you. The Exalt Guardian stretched out his palm and slashed down. A dazzling ray of light appeared and slashed down towards Lu Ming. Hiss! The sound of space being torn apart resounded as the ray of light slashed down and actually directly tore space apart, causing a pitch-black spatial rift to appear. In the distance, countless people opened their eyes wide. According to legend, domain spirit god realm experts could truly tear space apart and create spatial rifts. However, if there wasn't a major battle, then ordinary people wouldn't have the chance to see a domain spirit god realm expert fight. Now, they'd finally seen one. Sure enough, it was as the rumors said. How terrifying was the might of a palm that tore space apart? How would Lu Ming resist it? Break! Lu Ming let out a long howl. He grabbed the legs of a nine-dragon cauldron with both hands and lifted it up. Bang! The enormous cauldron collided with the ray of light. Clang! The ray of light merely shook when it struck the cauldron before it was directly destroyed. There wasn't even a trace of a mark on the cauldron. Hand Xiaoqing over. Lu Ming roared as he grabbed the enormous cauldron and took a large stride forward. After that, he swung the enormous cauldron again and smashed it down towards the Exalt Guardian like a hammer. Bastard! The Exalt Guardian roared furiously while his hair and beard fluttered while his aura grew even more shocking. An enormous sword appeared in his hand, and along with his true essence pouring madly into it, the enormous sword became 10,000 meters long. It was like a divine sword that split the heavens as it slashed down towards the enormous cauldron. Clang! The enormous sword and the enormous cauldron collided, and a world-shaking rumble resounded. Boundless gales of force tore out while a pitch-black spatial rift appeared in the sky. Swish! A ray of sword chi slashed down to the ground, and a rift that was a few hundred kilometers long opened up in the ground. It was unfathomable. It was too terrifying. Such a battle was absolutely capable of obliterating the heavens and the earth. A figure stepped on the void and staggered backward. It was that Exalt Guardian, a domain-enlightened spirit god, and he'd actually been blasted back. There was an uproar at the scene. Everyone could not believe their eyes. Lu Ming was only a young man around the age of 20 and possessed a cultivation at the sea spirit realm, yet he'd actually raised the cauldron and repelled a peerless expert at the domain-enlightened spirit god realm. This was too inconceivable, and it felt unreal as if it was a dream. Xia Zhen's eyes widened. He was almost scared to death. The protector of the ancient Saint dynasty was forced back by Lu Ming. If the cauldron were to hit him, wouldn't he be reduced to ashes? His back was drenched in cold sweat as he hastily retreated towards the Ocean Billow Ancient Garden. The Ocean Billow Ancient Garden was protected by a powerful array formation. Hand over Xiaoqing. Lu Ming strode forward, and the giant cauldron smashed towards the venerable protector again. The Guardian Knight roared as a huge sword with 5 golden chakras appeared above his head. That was the Guardian Knight's bloodline, a 5th-grade God Realm bloodline. Such a bloodline was terrifying when used by a domain-enlightened spirit god. The Guardian Knight's figure charged into the huge sword, and the huge sword whistled as it struck towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming raised the giant cauldron and smashed it down. Another shocking explosion resounded, and heaven and earth shook. The huge sword was blasted away, but Lu Ming also staggered back. His chi and blood surged, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. But the strange thing was that when he spat out the blood, it was directly absorbed by the divine nine-dragon cauldron. The cauldron glowed, and Lu Ming felt that the divine nine-dragon cauldron had become lighter. It was easier for him to wield it. He took a step forward, and the divine nine-dragon cauldron smashed towards the Guardian Knight again. The huge sword vibrated and collided with the cauldron again. Bang! This time, the huge sword was blasted away. It flew for over 100 miles before it reverted back to its human form and crashed into the ground, creating an unfathomably deep crater. Countless people were dumbfounded. Lu Ming was simply heaven-defying. He actually beat a domain-enlightened spirit god to the point that he was half dead. Lu Ming ignored the Guardian Knight. He carried the giant cauldron and walked towards the ancient ocean wave garden step by step. Bastard, how dare you! You deserve to die. 2 fierce shouts resounded from the ancient ocean wave garden. 2 figures charged out from the garden and stood in the air. They were 2 old men, and the aura they emitted was equally terrifying. They weren't any weaker than the Guardian Knight from before. In fact, they were even stronger. There was more than one domain-enlightened spirit god from the Central Continent's ancient Saint dynasty. The 2 old men were also experts from the Central Continent's ancient imperial dynasty. The 2 old men didn't say anything and charged towards Lu Ming. I told you to hand over Xiaoqing. Otherwise, we'll flatten the ancient ocean wave garden today. A deep roar came from Lu Ming's mouth. There was a crazed look in his eyes. Boom! Boom! He was fearless. He carried the divine nine-dragon cauldron and started a shocking battle with the two old men. More and more people came from all directions, but no one dared to come within 3,000 miles. A battle between domain enlightened spirit gods was too shocking. Experts below the domain enlightened spirit god realm would only die if they got close. Xian Yanqing sat cross-legged on the bed in a room in the depths of the ancient ocean wave garden. Her aura was extremely weak. Her true yuan and spirit flame had been sealed. She looked like an ordinary person. She sat quietly on the bed with a longing look in her eyes. Lu Ming, how are you? I thought that those fellows wouldn't come since the Battle of Providence was approaching. I didn't expect that they would still come. I can't hide from them in the end. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to that disgusting home. Xian Yanqing murmured softly. The Middle Continent ancient Saint dynasty had a long history. Legend had it that it had been passed down since ancient times. The ancient Saint dynasty's Xia clan had the bloodline of the ancient human emperor. The bloodline that they had awakened was holy and sacred. However, Xian Yanqing had awakened the heavenly demon bloodline. To the holy and sacred Xia clan, it was a lowly and dirty bloodline. Moreover, Xian Yanqing's mother was only a servant girl. Her father had given birth to Xian Yanqing because of her. However, after Xian Yanqing had awakened the heavenly demon bloodline, her mother had been killed as a heretic. Xian Yanqing was the descendant of the ancient Saint dynasty's emperor after all. That was why she had managed to survive. However, she had been ridiculed and humiliated. Xian Yanqing had lived under such a shadow since she was young. She hated that clan and wanted to escape. There were other examples like her in the history of the ancient Saint dynasty's Xia clan. The dark side of light was the dark side. Occasionally, a completely dark bloodline would be born among the divine bloodlines. In history, there had been such bloodlines that had caused chaos in the world and almost destroyed the ancient Saint dynasty. Therefore, those who had such heavenly demon bloodlines had all met a tragic end. There was no exception. Xian Yanqing hated that clan because of her mother. She also knew that she would not have a good ending if she continued to stay in that clan. Secretly, there were many people who wanted to get rid of her. Chapter 845. She had escaped a few times, but every time, she was found and brought back. They claimed that they couldn't allow a freak like her to ruin the reputation of the Xia clan. How laughable! She had never said that she was a member of the Xia clan. She disdained to be a member of the Xia clan. Those people from the Xia clan just didn't want her to live in this world. If it wasn't for the fact that the ancient emperor was her father, she would have died a long time ago. Lu Ming, no matter what kind of environment I face when I return, I will not die. I will work hard in my cultivation. I will wait for you to come and get me when you return. Xian Yanqing muttered as her eyes lit up. She believed that Lu Ming could do it. Hand Shaoqing over. Since Shaoqing isn't willing to go back with you, I won't let her go with you. Suddenly, an angry roar came from outside. Xian Yanqing's body trembled. It was Lu Ming's voice. Lu Ming, why are you here? You shouldn't have come. Xian Yanqing's eyes were filled with anxiety. She got up and rushed out of the door. Unfortunately, there were formations set up all around the room. Her cultivation was sealed, so she couldn't rush out at all. As soon as she touched the wooden door, a bolt of lightning flashed on the door. She flew out as if she was struck by lightning. She fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. Lu Ming, why are you here? Hurry up and leave. Xian Yanqing shouted. However, her voice could only reverberate in the small room. It couldn't travel out at all. Hand Shaoqing over. Lu Ming's angry roars could be heard from outside from time to time. Along with his roars, there was an earth-shattering rumble. Lu Ming, leave! Xian Yanqing shouted as tears flowed down her face. She rushed towards the wooden door again. However, she was struck by lightning just like before. She spat out a mouthful of blood. She didn't know what method Lu Ming had used to fight the experts of the ancient Saint dynasty. However, she knew that the ancient Saint dynasty's Xia clan had sent more than one spirit god realm expert. Furthermore, this was the Nine-Dragon City, and the ancient Saint dynasty's Xia clan was an esteemed guest of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace. How could the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace allow Lu Ming to deal with their esteemed guest? Lu Ming was destined to be in danger. Sure enough, not long after, two more powerful cultivators from the Xia clan of the ancient Saint dynasty rushed out. The battle outside was even more intense. Lu Ming! You fool! Xia Nianqing whispered. No matter how hard he tried, he could not stop the tears from rolling down his cheeks. There was blood at the corner of her mouth. The blood mixed with her tears, making her look as beautiful as a flower. In the sky above Hailan Ancient Park, the battle had reached its climax. Lu Ming fought two domain enlightened spirit gods with the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, and the entire heavens and the earth seethed while numerous spatial rifts flashed into appearance. Lu Ming had actually relied on the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron to suppress two domain enlightened spirit gods. Yes, Lu Ming had the upper hand in the battle against two domain enlightened spirit gods. Lu Ming, how dare you attack an esteemed guest of the ancient Saint dynasty? Are you trying to frame the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace? Capture him and hand him over to His Majesty. Cold shouts resounded from the sky as over a dozen figures descended. Every single one of them emitted a terrifying aura. Domain enlightened spirit gods. These dozen figures were all domain enlightened spirit gods. The domain enlightened spirit gods of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace had arrived. This bastard actually dared to touch the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron that even emperors couldn't touch. He must be a demon. We should capture him and interrogate him before executing him. One of the old men shouted coldly. His voice was filled with killing intent. This old man wore a starry robe. He was the Shengguan clan's elder with real authority, Shengguan Wuchen and Shengguan Wuling's grandfather, Shengguan Zhongyuan. Half a year ago, he'd repeatedly sent experts to kill Lu Ming, but they'd all been killed by Lu Ming. He'd been looking for an opportunity to kill Lu Ming since a long time ago. Now, it was the right time for him to personally make a move. Dong! Shengguan Zhongyuan took a step forward. Starlight that filled the sky descended and transformed into a starry sword that slashed violently towards Lu Ming. As one of the few domain enlightened spirit gods in the Shengguan clan, his combat strength was extremely terrifying. Bang! Bang! At the same time, a few other domain enlightened spirit gods attacked as well. Terrifying attacks blasted towards Lu Ming. In addition to the two experts from the Central Continent's ancient Saint dynasty, there were a total of 6 experts that attacked Lu Ming at the same time. The entire sky was shattered as numerous spatial rifts appeared. Lu Ming felt unparalleled pressure. Roar! The Nine Dragons' bloodline within Lu Ming's body let out long howls as dense blood qi effused out. Pooh! Lu Ming spat out another mouthful of blood onto the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron. This was the blood of the Nine Dragons' bloodline. The divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron shook as Lu Ming raised it and swept it out horizontally. Bang! 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 The 6 attacks were all blocked by Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's body shook violently as well. His bones seemed to be on the verge of breaking, and his entire body was numb from the shock. However, he blocked them in the end. The others in the surroundings gasped incessantly. Lu Ming had actually resisted 6 domain enlightened spirit gods by himself and was actually able to survive. Even though it was because of the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron, being able to utilize the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron itself was an extremely terrifying thing. Everyone, this kid is evil. Let's attack together and capture him and hand him over to His Majesty to deal with. Shengguan Zhongyuan cried out. There were still 7 domain enlightened spirit gods in the sky who hadn't made a move. They originally disdained to besiege a junior. However, their gazes flickered when they heard Shengguan Zhongyuan. The divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron is of great importance. It hasn't been moved for ages, yet it moved because of him. We really have to capture him and get to the bottom of this. Someone spoke. Exactly. Someone replied. Thump. Thump. Even more people stepped forward while emanating violent auras. Come. I'll slaughter the domain enlightened spirit gods today. Lu Ming roared loudly while his eyes were filled with madness. He'd originally intended to utilize the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron to crush the exalted guardians and take Xie Nianqing away from Nine-Dragon City. However, these supreme domain enlightened spirit gods from Emperor Heaven Divine Palace had actually joined forces against him without any reason. Thus, he could only fight today. Attack! This time, a total of 9 domain enlightened spirit gods attacked. Their terrifying might swept out in a vast array as 9 attacks of various colors enveloped down towards Lu Ming. The attacks hadn't even arrived when Lu Ming suffered terrifying pressure, and his body seemed as if it was on the verge of exploding apart. If he hadn't relied on the might of the divine Nine-Dragon Cauldron to protect himself, he would have been blasted into pieces a long time ago. Roar! Roar! The 9 dragons' bloodline within his body roared violently without end. At this moment, Lu Ming couldn't suppress it any longer, and the 9 dragons' bloodline shot into the sky as he roared furiously. The dragon roar resounded through the heavens and the earth while the 9 dragons' bloodline's body expanded swiftly to become over 10,000 meters long, and it coiled around the divine 9-dragon cauldron. That's a god-rank bloodline. Heavens! What's going on? Isn't Lu Ming's bloodline a stone tablet? Why has it become a true dragon? 2 god-rank bloodlines. How could this be possible? How could this be possible? Some people had seen Lu Ming attack, and they cried out with disbelief at this moment. Chapter 846. The 9-dragon bloodline roared at the sky. The divine 9-dragon cauldron shook violently and radiated light. Boom boom, Lu Ming lifted the 9-dragon cauldron and swept it out, once again destroying the 9 attacks. The 9-dragon bloodline roared again and spat out a mouthful of blood onto the divine 9-dragon cauldron. At this moment, the true dragon carvings on the divine 9-dragon cauldron seemed to have come alive as dragon roars could be heard. At this moment, the 9 dragon veins in the 9-dragon city shook violently and dragon roars could be heard. Countless people were shocked. Clang! Clang! 8 of the dragon veins had 8 divine 9-dragon cauldrons on them, and all of them were shaking violently. Suddenly, the 9-dragon cauldron closest to Lu Ming vibrated the most violently. Gravel flew everywhere. This divine cauldron actually left the ground, cut through the void, and disappeared. At this moment, deep within the 6 ancient families, the 6 family heads' eyes shone brightly. The strange true dragon bloodline. His Majesty was talking about this kid. The 6 of them said at the same time and stood up and took a step forward. When they took a step forward, a crack appeared in the void. They stepped into the crack and disappeared. 1,000,000 miles away, the fat man roared. Ah! Break for me! His fat body swelled and his eyes were red as he swung the battle axe in his hand. At the same time, Wang Haoxian, Wan Tingting, and Xiao Xian helped him and attacked the array that trapped them. Puff! The fat man spat out a mouthful of blood on the battle axe, increasing its power. A terrifying axe radiance seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth. Boom! Smoke and dust filled the air, and the formation collapsed with a loud bang. The formation was broken. Let's go to the Ocean Wave Ancient Garden. Fatty roared, and the group of people quickly flew towards the Ocean Wave Ancient Garden. In the sky above the Ocean Wave Ancient Garden. This kid is evil. Everyone, attack! Shangguan Zhongyuan roared. At this moment, the remaining spiritual gods appeared around Lu Ming and surrounded him. There were a total of 13 spiritual gods. Attack! Clang! Just as they were about to make a move, another huge cauldron descended from the sky. Another divine 9-dragon cauldron. How is this possible? The second one. Could it be that Lu Ming can control the second one? Everyone was so shocked that they almost jumped up. Come, fight with me. Lu Ming let out a long roar. He reached out his right hand and grabbed one of the legs of the second divine nine-dragon cauldron. Lu Ming grabbed one in each hand. The two huge nine-dragon cauldrons were like two huge iron hammers. You old man, I'll kill you first. Lu Ming stared at Shengwan Zhongyuan and took large strides forward. The large cauldron was like a giant hammer as it smashed towards Shengwan Zhongyuan. This old man was filled with killing intent as soon as he appeared. He couldn't wait to kill Lu Ming. It was exactly because of his instigation that the other domain enlightened spirit gods had successively attacked, otherwise, there wouldn't be so many domain enlightened spirit gods besieging him. Let's attack together. Shengwan Zhongyuan's expression changed drastically, and he roared loudly. Starlight surged, and an enormous rift seemed to have split open in the sky. A pillar of starlight descended down onto Shengwan Zhongyuan. The starlight condensed and transformed into countless starry battle swords, piercing toward Lu Ming. At the same time, the other 12 experts attacked as well. All sorts of attacks blasted towards Lu Ming. The two cauldrons danced about in Lu Ming's hand. One of them was mainly used to block the attacks of the others, whereas, the other in his right hand smashed madly towards Shengwan Zhongyuan. He only targeted a single person and attacked madly. The bloodline of the nine dragons howled, and it seemed to have formed some sort of resonance with the divine nine-dragon cauldron, causing its might to increase greatly. Bang! As the enormous cauldron smashed down, all of Shengwan Zhongyuan's attacks vanished into thin air. The enormous cauldron that was large like a mountain smashed forcefully onto Shengwan Zhongyuan, and a strand of terrifying energy effused out from it. This energy firmly locked onto Shengwan Zhongyuan, causing him to be unable to dodge and could only take it head-on. A trace of astonishment appeared in his eyes, and the energy of the stars erupted madly. His fists were like two stars that blasted towards the enormous cauldron. But at the instant they came into contact with the enormous cauldron, the starlight was extinguished, and Shengwan Zhongyuan's fists instantly shattered. He let out a shrill cry as his body was blasted flying. Bang! 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 The attacks of the others were all blocked by Lu Ming with the other divine nine-dragon cauldron. Moreover, they were firmly blocked. The eruption of the nine dragons' bloodline and the increase in number of cauldrons caused their might to rise to a terrifying level. Dong! Dong! Lu Ming strode through the air and continued charging towards Shengwan Zhongyuan. The enormous cauldron covered the sky as it pierced through space and smashed towards Shengwan Zhongyuan. The terrifying aura it emanated caused Shengwan Zhongyuan's heart to tremble. No, no! Shengwan Zhongyuan roared loudly. He felt death approaching, and this feeling made him feel like he was about to go mad. He'd come today to kill Lu Ming, not to throw his life away. He roared loudly as a tiger star appeared above his head, and there were 3 golden chakras on the tiger star. A third-grade god-rank bloodline could be considered to be inferior in the domain enlightened spirit god realm. Shengwan Zhongyuan transformed into the tiger star and hoped that he could resist Chen Shi's attack. However, in the next moment, he felt despair. The tiger star instantly collapsed under the pressure of the enormous cauldron, and he transformed back into his human form. Moreover, his body cracked apart under the enormous pressure. Bang! His entire body exploded apart, and both his body and soul were obliterated. Countless people felt cold air run through their bodies when they witnessed this scene. A domain-enlightened spirit god had been killed just like that. He'd died just like that. He'd been smashed to death by Lu Ming's cauldron. This was too inconceivable. Especially the disciples of the Shengwan clan, their countenances had turned ghastly pale, and they were extremely terrified. The other 12 domain-enlightened spirit gods were extremely terrified as well, and their figures retreated swiftly. The 12 of them joined forces, and their auras fused together. Shengwan Zhongyuan's fate caused them to be shocked. Since Lu Ming could kill one of them, then he could kill another. So, the 12 of them didn't dare split up. Swoosh! Swoosh! At this moment, howls resounded incessantly in the sky. This time, at least 20 figures had appeared in the sky, and every single one of them emanated a terrifying aura. The Domain Enlightened Spirit Gods were all experts at the Domain Enlightened Spirit God realm, and even more Domain Enlightened Spirit God realm experts had arrived. These experts descended and converged with the 12 experts from before, and their formidable auras enveloped down towards Lu Ming. Clang! Clang! The 2 cauldrons shook while the bloodline of the 9 dragons roared, and they felt terrifying pressure. If you want to fight, then let's fight to the end today. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with battle intent. He held a cauldron in each hand as he faced the 30-plus Domain Enlightened Spirit Gods from afar, and his eyes were completely fearless. You're so young, yet your will isn't small. Unfortunately, you've used it in the wrong place. An extremely dignified voice suddenly resounded through the heavens and the earth. It wasn't those Domain Enlightened Spirit God realm experts, and it was someone else. No one knew where this voice came from, and it seemed as if it existed in the heavens and the earth. However, the hearts of practically everyone constricted when they heard this voice, and it was like they were facing a terrifying existence. Swish! Chapter 847. Lu Ming's pupils constricted rapidly. He could feel a terrifying pressure coming from the flaming sword. This pressure was even stronger than the combined forces of the dozens of spiritual God realm experts. It posed a fatal threat to him. Lu Ming roared furiously. He exerted all his strength and swung the 2 huge cauldrons at the flaming sword. Boom! A huge explosion resounded. The huge cauldrons shook and the void shattered. Endless flames spread out. The terrifying heat caused the space to distort and crack. The raging flames burned through the space. The scene was extremely shocking. Interesting. The dignified voice continued to resound. Then, a middle-aged man in a purple robe stepped out of the spatial crack. He held the flaming sword in his hand and stood in the void. His body was also suffused with purple flames. A huge black hole appeared in the area where he stood. There was nothing in the black hole, only an endless and terrifying void. That was because the terrifying temperature of the middle-aged man's body had burned through the space. Supreme Being. It's a Supreme Being. It's the Wang clan's patriarch. The Wang clan's Supreme Being is here. Waves of incredulous exclamations and roars resounded. Some people's eyes widened as they roared loudly. They were too shocked. Lu Ming had actually lured a Supreme Being out. Exalts were existences that stood at the peak of the Domain Enlightened Spirit God realm, and it was even to the extent that they'd already surpassed the Domain Enlightened Spirit God realm and were existences that had taken half a step into the Martial Monarch realm. Every single one of these existences were existences that ruled over an area and were invincible. Supreme beings were the strongest in the absence of martial monarchs. There were only a handful of such people in the entire Emperor Heaven Divine Palace. Even such people had appeared now. However, the crowd's shock had just begun. Rip! Rip! High up in the sky, the space cracked continuously. Many figures stepped out of the cracks. There were 5 of them. Including the Wang clan's patriarch, there were a total of 6 people. The 6 figures stood in 6 different directions. Every one of them had a terrifying and domineering aura. One of them was like a peerless divine weapon just by standing there. His sharp aura directly tore the space apart. One of them was filled with battle intent, like a god of war who had been through hundreds of battles. Another was elegant. The 6 of them each had their own unique characteristics, but the one thing they had in common was that they were strong, too strong. Their auras were vast and mighty. Even from thousands or tens of thousands of miles away, one could still feel the terrifying pressure. Heavens, heavens, those are the family heads of the 6 great ancient families. They are all supreme beings. The supreme beings of the 6 great ancient families have all come out. Someone shouted crazily. However, most of the people remained silent. Because they were already numb to it. The 6 Supremes had only appeared when they were facing an enemy Emperor Dao expert. Now, they had all appeared because of Lu Ming. Little guy, you're really something. You're the first one to make the 9-dragon cauldron move because of you. Now, come with me. His Majesty Empress Wu wants to see you. One of the middle-aged men spoke. Although his voice was calm, it was filled with authority. Someone recognized that this was the patriarch of the Dongfang family. At the scene, the hearts of countless people trembled once again. Even Martial Emperor De had been alarmed. Martial Emperor De had sent 6 supreme beings just to see Lu Ming. Many people already felt that it was difficult to breathe. What had happened today was beyond their imagination. Maybe it was because of the 9-dragon cauldron. Many people guessed. They're really here. They're so fast. Lu Ming's pupils shrank as he thought quickly. When the 9 dragons' blood rushed out and resonated with the 9-dragon cauldron, Lu Ming knew that the 9 dragons' blood might be exposed. However, the other party had come faster than he had expected. Others thought that it was because of the 9-dragon cauldron, but Lu Ming knew that Martial Emperor De was looking for him because he had discovered the 9 dragons' blood. It was because of the 9 dragons' blood. De wants to see me. Tell him to come here himself. Lu Ming said loudly. Since he had already come this far, it was useless to be afraid. It was better to face it directly. However, his words caused an earthquake. Countless people opened their eyes wide and felt that their hearts were about to jump out of their chests. Lu Ming dared to call Martial Emperor De by his name. Moreover, he even asked Martial Emperor De to see him. Lawless, this was lawless. A mere Sea of Soul realm martial artist dared to ask a martial emperor to see him. If a martial emperor wanted to see him, it would be a great honor for him. It was something that countless people wished for. They really could not figure out where Lu Ming got his guts from. Lu Ming sneered. He knew that meeting Martial Emperor De would not bode well for him. Therefore, there was nothing to be afraid of. Bastard, how dare you? A mere ant dares to boast so shamelessly. You deserve to die. The Wang clan leader shouted coldly. He was very overbearing and filled with murderous intent. This kid is too arrogant. No matter how talented he is, he will not be controlled if he succeeds. It's better to cripple him and hand him over to His Majesty. The Jiang clan leader said coldly. His voice was like a divine weapon being polished. It made people's hearts beat faster. Alright, since he is so stubborn, let's take him down. The Luan clan leader said. Alright, who will do it? The Jiang clan leader said. I'll do it. The Wang clan leader said with flames burning in his eyes. The other 5 nodded and took a step back. All of you, step back and protect the surroundings. The Wang clan leader glanced at the dozens of spiritual god realm experts. Yes. The dozens of spiritual god realm experts retreated to various corners and prepared to protect the mountains and rivers. Junior, since you are so stubborn, then I'll do it myself. Boom. As the Wang clan leader spoke, a heaven-shaking, earth-shattering aura erupted from his body. Violet flames spread out, burning through even more space in the surrounding area. The flaming sword in his hand expanded rapidly and became 10,000 meters long. Retreat, retreat. The spectators in the distance were extremely terrified and retreated madly again. A prime was about to make a move. If even a wisp of energy leaked out, it would probably be a disaster. It could kill ordinary martial artists countless times. They had no choice but to retreat. Swoosh! The vast sword in the Wang clan leader's hand slashed violently at Lu Ming. Everywhere the sword passed, space turned into nothingness, revealing a terrifying dark void. Om! The divine 9-dragon cauldron shook while the 9 dragons' bloodline roared. Lu Ming grabbed the 2 cauldrons and smashed them explosively at the Wang clan leader. Bang! A terrifying collision resounded once more. The heavens and the earth shook without end, and the cauldrons shook while boundless energy dispersed towards the surroundings. The dozens of spiritual god realm experts below shouted loudly while radiance effused out from their hands and blocked all the terrifying energy. Lu Ming felt boundless blazing energy surge towards him. Even with the protection of the two cauldrons, he still felt like he was about to be burned into ashes. He took a large step back and stepped through space. The Wang clan prime has the upper hand. Lu Ming is about to be defeated. Chapter 848. That is for sure. The Wang clan head is a prime. Aside from martial monarchs, primes are unrivaled. Even if Lu Ming can control the two divine nine-dragon cauldrons, they are just external objects. How can he fight against a prime? That's right. To think that this brat can control the divine nine-dragon cauldrons. After we capture him, we must get the secret out of him. If the experts of our Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace, or even His Majesty the Martial Monarch, can control the divine nine-dragon cauldrons, how strong would they be? Wouldn't they be able to sweep through the Heavenly Corpse Sect and the Heavenly Fiend Valley? Indeed. We must get the secret out of him. Many people in the surroundings said coldly, especially the disciples of the Wang clan, the Jiang clan, and the other ancient noble clans. Lu Ming. The figures of the fatty, Wan Tingting, and the others appeared in the crowd. They had finally rushed over. However, when they saw the scene of Lu Ming fighting against a prime, they were shocked and worried at the same time. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, even with the help of the divine cauldrons, how could he fight against a prime? Old bastard! You must get the old bastard here. The fatty's throat constantly emitted low growls. The divine nine-dragon cauldrons are indeed wondrous. However, today, the divine nine-dragon cauldrons cannot protect you. The Wang clan head held the 10,000-meter-long flaming sword in his hand as he took large strides forward. Then, he slashed at Lu Ming again. Lu Ming could only use the two cauldrons to block. Boom! There was a shocking explosion. Lu Ming's body shook violently as he retreated continuously. The power of a prime was too strong. An ordinary spiritual god was too weak compared to it. The power of the divine cauldrons is still an external force. As for you, how much of the divine cauldrons might can you bring out? You want to use this to fight against me? You are like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. You are just putting up a desperate struggle. The Wang clan head was like a purple sun floating in the sky, emitting a boundless blazing aura. However, his voice was very cold. As he spoke, he took a step forward and raised his flaming sword again. Roar! The nine dragons' bloodline roared, and a bloody aura spread out. Then, he spat out a mouthful of blood that was absorbed by the divine nine-dragon cauldrons. Dang! Dang! The two cauldrons were shaking. In the next moment, the sky suddenly darkened. Everyone was shocked to see another cauldron descend, suppressing the head of the Wang clan. The third cauldron. Lu Ming had actually summoned 3 cauldrons. Boom! The third cauldron flew towards the head of the Wang clan, but it was sent flying by the head of the Wang clan. The huge cauldron flew towards Lu Ming, trembling slightly as it emitted a brilliant light. It seemed to form some sort of resonance with the previous 2 divine cauldrons. The aura emanating from the divine cauldron seemed to grow even stronger. It seemed that the more divine cauldrons there were, the more powerful they would be when combined with each other. Wang! Wang! The divine cauldron shook and left Lu Ming's palm. It began to revolve around Lu Ming's body. The 9-dragon cauldron coiled around the first cauldron and floated above Lu Ming's head. The other 2 cauldrons floated beside Lu Ming and rotated. Come on! Lu Ming waved his hand, and a huge cauldron flew out, suppressing the Wang family head. The head of the Wang family looked serious as he slashed out with his flaming sword. Dang! The divine cauldron was repelled, but Lu Ming waved his hand again, and another cauldron flew out, suppressing the head of the Wang family head. Boom! Boom! 2 9-dragon cauldrons flew towards the head of the Wang family head. The head of the Wang family head kept waving his sword, and a shocking sword radiance shot out, fighting against the 3 cauldrons. But he couldn't win at the moment. This scene was too shocking. Lu Ming could actually summon 3 9-dragon cauldrons and fight the head of the Wang family head to a draw. This was too unbelievable, like a fantasy story. Many people also thought that there were 9 9-dragon cauldrons in total. Since Lu Ming could summon 3 of them, could he summon more? How terrifying would the power be? Wang! As if confirming everyone's guess, the heavens and earth shook. In the sky, another huge object descended, and its target was the head of the Wang family. The head of the Wang family head's pupils shrank, and he let out a long roar. A wisp of purple flame floated above his head, and there were 6 golden chakras above the purple flame. The head of the Wang family had a terrifying bloodline of the divine realm. The head of the Wang family merged with his bloodline, and turned into a ball of purple flame. The purple flame then changed again, and turned into a huge purple sword. When a Supreme Being expert used bloodline fusion, the power was terrifying. The purple sword danced, and a cauldron was sent flying. But the other 2 cauldrons continued to suppress the head of the Wang family head. With the addition of another cauldron, the power of the 9-dragon cauldron increased again. It continued to suppress the head of the Wang family head, and it was in a stalemate. This guy is evil. He can summon cauldrons continuously. We must quickly suppress him, and not let him summon more cauldrons. A sonorous voice sounded, and the head of the Jiang family head took a step forward. He wanted to join forces with the head of the Wang family head to suppress Lu Ming. Now, 2 supreme beings had to join forces to deal with Lu Ming. It was like a dream. Clang! The head of the Jiang family head made his move. With a wave of his arm, everything was destroyed, and the heavens and earth were split open. It was really split open, and it wasn't just for show. A ferocious crack that was 100 miles long appeared between the heavens and earth. Whoosh! An incomparably sharp light slashed towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming's face changed. He had no choice but to control a cauldron and attack the head of the Jiang family head. Clang! A cauldron was directly sent flying. The head of the Jiang family head didn't stop. His eyes were like divine swords, and he stepped towards Lu Ming. Roar! The dragon's roar shook the heavens, and the 9-dragon cauldron spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood. The cauldron shook, and the sky rumbled. At this moment, another cauldron came crashing down. The 5th 9-dragon cauldron arrived. The 5th 9-dragon cauldron suppressed the head of the Jiang family head. The head of the Jiang family head roared, and his aura was wild. He punched out with both fists, and the 2 cauldrons were constantly sent flying. Puff! Lu Ming coughed out a mouthful of blood, and his face was a little pale. After all, the head of the Jiang family head was a supreme being. He had the cauldron to protect him, but he still suffered great pressure and coughed out blood. What are you waiting for? Why aren't you attacking? Are you waiting for him to summon more 9-dragon cauldrons? The head of the Jiang family head said coldly as he glanced at the remaining 4 heads of the Jiang family head. That's right. Let's take down this kid first. The head of the Luan family head said. He took a step forward, and his battle intent soared into the sky. The eyes of the remaining 3 flashed, and then, another person stepped out. This person was the head of one of the ancient families, the Kong family head. They wanted to join forces and end the battle quickly. Lu Ming was too demonic and strange. They were really afraid that Lu Ming would summon 9 dragon cauldrons. If the 9 cauldrons gathered together, who knew what would happen? Supreme beings need so many of you to join forces to deal with a junior. Have you lived for so long in vain? At this moment, an angry roar reverberated in the heavens and the earth, spreading for tens of thousands of miles. Many people were shocked. Who was it? How dare he scold the supreme beings? Did he want to die? Rip! In the next moment, the space in the sky cracked, and a figure stepped out. The figure looked to be in his 30s. He held a wine gourd in his hand and drank a few mouthfuls of wine. He stood in front of the head of the Luan family and the head of the Kong family, and his eyes were full of disdain. Yan Kuangtu, it's Yan Kuangtu. It's him, no wonder. Chapter 849. Everyone in Nine Dragons City knew who Yan Kuangtu was. He was the disciple of Supreme Nine Sons and the grand disciple of Martial Emperor De. Not to mention his high status, his talent was even more shocking. In just 100 years, Yan Kuangtu had reached the supremacy realm. He was on par with his master, Supreme Nine Sons. Furthermore, Yan Kuangtu was arrogant, unruly and lawless. He did not give face to anyone. When he was mad, he did not even give face to Emperor De. He had almost destroyed a powerful force that was second only to the ancient families in anger, shaking Nine Dragon City. It was normal for such an existence to dare to scold the supremacies of the ancient families. But what was he trying to do? The patriarch of the Luan clan and the Kong clan frowned. Yan Kuangtu, what are you trying to do? Get out of my way. The patriarch of the Luan clan said coldly. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. What am I trying to do? You have all lived for thousands of years. How shameless. Let me tell you, Lu Ming is my little brother. If you want to touch him, you have to defeat me first. Yan Kuangtu drank a few mouthfuls of wine with a crazy look in his eyes. Many people were shocked. Yan Kuangtu called Lu Ming his little brother. It turned out that they knew each other. Yan Kuangtu knew Lu Ming. Brother Yan. Yan Kuangtu's appearance surprised Lu Ming and he could not help but call out. Brother Lu Ming, not bad. You can fight a supremacy at the sea spirit realm. Impressive, you are much more impressive than me. Yan Kuangtu burst into laughter. Yan Kuangtu, are you not going to get out of my way today? The patriarch of the Luan clan said coldly. Nonsense. Yan Kuangtu's reply was simple. All right, Yan Kuangtu, I would like to see how strong you are as the strongest genius after 9 sons. The patriarch of the Luan clan said coldly. A violent battle intent burst out as he took a step forward and threw out a punch. The punch was extremely terrifying, shattering the void. Yan Kuangtu opened his mouth and sucked a mouthful of wine from the wine gourd. At the same time, he threw out a punch. This punch was not as earth-shattering as the Luan clan's patriarch's punch. It seemed very ordinary. However, the result of this exchange of fists left everyone dumbfounded. When the two fists collided, a terrifying explosion occurred in the air. A figure staggered backwards. This figure was actually the head of the Luan family. The patriarch of the Luan clan was knocked back by Yan Kuangtu's punch. How was this possible? They were both supremes, how could Yan Kuangtu be so strong? Kill! The patriarch of the Luan clan roared as his battle intent soared to the sky. A saber appeared in his hand as he charged towards Yan Kuangtu. Clang! A shocking sword aura soared into the sky, blooming from Yan Kuangtu's hand. The sword aura and the saber aura clashed. The saber aura shattered and the sword aura continued to slash down. How is this possible? The Luan family's patriarch roared in disbelief. The battle blade slashed out continuously to block Yan Kuangtu's sword light. Like teacher, like disciple. Jiuyang has taken in a good disciple. Yan Kuangtu, although you are strong, you can't protect Lu Ming. The head of the Kong family stepped forward and stood beside the head of the Luan family. Why not? Yan Kuangtu asked. Because Lu Ming is wanted by Her Majesty Empress Wu. We are also under orders to bring Lu Ming to see Her Majesty. The head of the Luan family said. Why does Her Majesty want Lu Ming? Yan Kuangtu frowned. Well, we don't know. So, you'd better get out of the way. Otherwise, if Her Majesty is unhappy, none of us can bear the responsibility. The head of the Luan family sneered. Yan Kuangtu's frown deepened. He turned to look at Lu Ming and said, Brother Lu Ming, do you know why Her Majesty Empress Wu wants to see you? Is it because of the divine cauldron? Lu Ming controlled the divine Nine Dragon cauldron to fight against the heads of the Jiang and Wang families. It was hard to tell who had the upper hand. At this moment, he pondered for a moment and said, "That old man De wants to see me because he likes my bloodline and wants to take it for himself." Lu Ming's voice was calm, but it was like a storm that stirred up thousands of waves. What? What did Lu Ming say? How dare you address Her Majesty Empress Wu in such a manner, and even slander her? Bastard, bastard, how dare he be so bold? Who does he think he is? He dares to say that Her Majesty Empress Wu wants his bloodline. It's just a level 2 divine bloodline. Why would Her Majesty Empress Wu want it? Slander, nonsense, this person should be cut into pieces as a warning to others. Countless people roared, looking at Lu Ming with cold and sinister gazes. Bastard, how dare you slander Her Majesty? You're courting death. The head of the Wang family roared and fought with all his might. Yan Kuangtu, you've seen this guy's character. He's simply lawless. We can't let him live. Why don't you get out of the way? The head of the Luan family said. No. Yan Kuangtu did not move and said, today's matter, unless the martial ancestor comes to explain it in person, Yan Kuangtu will not let you take Lu Ming away. Yan Kuangtu's words stunned many people. Crazy, he's really crazy. He actually wants Martial Emperor De to explain it in person. Everyone finally understood why Yan Kuangtu and Lu Ming would address each other as brothers. The two of them were basically the same kind of people. They were equally lawless and arrogant. Yan Kuangtu, how dare you? Since that's the case, we can only take you down first. Everyone, if we don't join forces now, when will we? The head of the Jiang family looked at the last two people. That's the only way. The head of the Dongfang family sighed and stepped out. Brother Nangong, go and help Brother Jiang and Brother Wang to take down Lu Ming. Leave Yan Kuangtu to us. All right. The head of the Nangong family stepped out and moved towards Lu Ming. The heads of the Dongfang family, Luan family and Kong family unleashed their auras and shrouded towards Yan Kuangtu. The supremes of the 6 ancient families were joining forces. Get lost! Yan Kuangtu shouted coldly. His sword chi erupted. At this moment, his sword chi was filled with blazing flames. The temperature of the flames was even higher than that of the head of the Wang family. At the same time, the 3 supremes of the Luan family, Dongfang family and Kong family also took action. Violent energy erupted and blasted towards Yan Kuangtu. They wanted to restrain Yan Kuangtu first. What can the 3 old men do to me? Yan Kuangtu roared. Suddenly, golden flames erupted from his body. The terrifying temperature spread for thousands of miles. The golden flames burst out along with the sword chi. Fire of the Golden Crow. The 3 supremes of the Luan family looked dignified. The 3 attacks collided with Yan Kuangtu's sword chi. After the explosion, Yan Kuangtu did not retreat a single step. This was incomparably shocking. Yan Kuangtu actually fought 3 supremes alone without retreating a single step. It was unbelievable. They were all supremes, but why was Yan Kuangtu so powerful? One should know that those who could reach the Supreme's realm were rare geniuses. They were all invincible existences of the same level. Otherwise, how could they reach the Supreme's realm? But now, Yan Kuangtu's battle strength was even stronger and more terrifying. On the other side, the head of the Nangong family erupted and attacked Lu Ming. But at this moment, the sky shook. Another large cauldron descended and blasted towards the head of the Nangong family. Chapter 850. 6 cauldrons, 1 for protection and 5 for offense. Lu Ming used the 6-9 dragon cauldrons to fight against the 3 primes. Yan Kuangtu had single-handedly blocked 3 supreme beings. The 6 great primes of the 6 great ancient clans were all blocked. This scene caused countless people in the sky to be dumbfounded. Everything that happened today was simply inconceivable. Clang! The Jiang clan head was like a divine weapon. He sent 2 cauldrons flying and used bloodline fusion. Then, the Nangong clan head also used bloodline fusion. Together with the Wang clan head, the three primes of the ancient clans all used bloodline fusion to take down Lu Ming. Boom! 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 The entire sky was penetrated. The three primes joined forces and unleashed their strongest attack. It was too terrifying. Not many people below the martial emperor realm could face it. The nine-dragon cauldron vibrated continuously. The connection between the cauldron and the cauldron seemed to be disrupted. The pressure on Lu Ming was getting stronger and stronger. The bones all over his body made cracking sounds and fine beads of blood seeped out of his skin. He can't hold on any longer. The Wang clan head turned into a huge purple flaming sword. His heavenly fire burst out and spread towards Lu Ming. The nine-dragon bloodline roared and the nine-dragon cauldrons shook. However, it was still difficult to resist the attacks of the three primes. Whoosh! The Jiang clan head broke through the attack of one of the cauldrons and attacked Lu Ming. The first cauldron above Lu Ming's head shook and emitted a bright light. It attacked the Jiang clan head. Dong! There was a violent explosion. Lu Ming's body shook violently. He was sent flying along with the first cauldron. Blood spurted out of his mouth. Brother Lu Ming. Yan Kuangtu was shocked. His sword light soared into the sky. He wanted to rush out and save Lu Ming. Yan Kuangtu, do you really think the three of us are decorations? Kill! The Luan clan head roared and used bloodline fusion. He turned into an invincible god of war and attacked Yan Kuangtu. At the same time, the Kong clan head and the Dongfang clan head also used bloodline fusion. The bloodlines of the three clan heads were all level 6 divine realm. The three of them joined forces and unleashed a powerful attack. No matter how strong Yan Kuangtu was, he did not dare to be careless when facing the three primes. He let out a long cry and a huge golden divine bird appeared. This divine bird was shaped like a crow. Its entire body was golden in color, and it was covered in golden flames. The temperature of this golden flame was even more terrifying than the Wang clan's pure purple heavenly fire. This divine bird had 3 legs and 8 golden chakras around its body, which was extremely dazzling. Bloodline of the 8th level of the divine level, 3-legged golden crow. It was said that the sun was the sun. Was a terrifying divine realm divine beast. Yan Kuangtu's bloodline was the 3-legged golden crow, and he was a level 8 divine realm expert, 2 levels higher than the patriarch of the ancient aristocratic families. It was terrifying. No wonder he was so strong. Yan Kuangtu used bloodline fusion and turned into a 3-legged golden crow to fight the three primes. Heaven and earth were boiling. Endless energy formed a terrifying storm that spread out in all directions. Fortunately, even more domain-enlightened spirit gods had made an appearance at this moment, and they were distributed throughout the surroundings and joined forces to resist the force that was spreading towards the surroundings. Otherwise, an area of a few million kilometers would have been blasted apart by the joint forces of so many supreme exalts. Primes were too powerful. They could destroy a country with a flip of their hand. An empire like the Blazing Sun Empire could be destroyed with a single palm. They were unimaginably powerful. Yan Kuangtu was fighting the three primes. It was hard to determine the outcome of the battle. He couldn't get away to save Lu Ming. For a time, Lu Ming was completely suppressed. He was in a precarious situation. 6 divine cauldrons is his limit. He can't summon more cauldrons. The Wang clan had said. The attack was even more terrifying. What happened this time was completely beyond their expectations. They did not expect Lu Ming to be able to pull up the divine 9-dragon cauldron and summon 6 of them. This was something that had never happened since ancient times. In the end, even they had to join forces to deal with Lu Ming. Today, no matter what the outcome was, their reputation would plummet. All of this was because of Lu Ming. As the head of the Wang family who was the first to strike, he hated Lu Ming even more. Little bastard, don't put up a meaningless resistance. His Majesty has spoken. Your fate is sealed. The Wong clan head continued to speak with cold killing intent. Don't make it sound so dignified. Even if the heavens want to suppress me, I will break through the heavens. Not to mention DE. Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron, fight with me. Lu Ming roared. His voice was like a dragon's roar. The Nine Dragon Cauldron twisted and blood mist filled the air. Bang! Suddenly, one of the golden chakras on the Nine Dragon Cauldron exploded with a bang. The chakras exploded and the Nine Dragon Cauldron roared as if it was in extreme pain. Lu Ming also roared. His eyes were bloodshot. He felt that his soul was about to be torn apart. It was too painful. However, his gaze was still firm and unwavering. The chakras exploded and turned into a ray of golden light that seeped into the Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. Clang! The Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron shook. The dragon carvings on the cauldron shone brightly. The 6 Divine Nine Dragon Cauldrons roared. Boom! The sky trembled, and the void collapsed. Another gigantic being flew over, suppressing the Wong clan leader. The 7th Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. The Nine Dragon Cauldron exploded and summoned the 7th Divine Nine Dragon Cauldron. However, this was not the end. Cauldron, come! Lu Ming roared. His voice shook the sky. The sky shook. Then, another divine cauldron descended. The 8th cauldron. Impossible! The Wong clan head said in disbelief. Boom! Following the Wong clan head's roar, the sky shook again. Another divine Nine Dragon Cauldron descended. Nine divine Nine Dragon Cauldrons descended. When the 9 divine Nine Dragon Cauldrons gathered, the 9 divine cauldrons seemed to resonate strongly. All of them shone brightly and dragon roars shook the sky. The 9 divine cauldrons revolved around the one above Lu Ming's head. An unbelievably powerful aura spread out. 9 divine cauldrons gather and suppress the heavens. A voice sounded from the divine cauldron. Suppress. Lu Ming waved his hand and the 8 divine cauldrons around him pressed down. Bang! 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 3 loud explosions sounded. The Wong clan head and the other 2 supremes were sent flying. Impossible! The Wong clan head shouted in disbelief. I will kill you today and kill the supremes. Lu Ming's cold voice sounded. He waved his hand and at least 6 of the 8 divine cauldrons flew towards the Wong clan head. The other 2 were used to defend against the other 2 supremes. Boom! Boom! 6 divine cauldrons flew towards the Wong clan head. The Wong clan head's purple giant sword burst out with a shocking sword chi as he tried his best to defend himself. However, every time he tried to defend himself, he would be sent flying. The body of the sword kept shaking. After 6 times, the flames on the body of the purple sword withered a lot. It seemed to be severely injured. Lu Ming waved his hand again and the 6 divine cauldrons continued to press down. Bastard! How dare you!